We can talk about Frank Saravalli,
Frank
how he
Saravalli.
completely messed up the trade deadline. Frank Saravalli had one of the worst trade deadline performances I think I've ever seen from an insider.
How do you screw that up so badly?
He must have been taking every piece of information he could get. And this is part of a bigger problem. I think down on people having sources from the inside. Like I think they're flooding the zone with fake information.
Years ago, like I think it was like right after Vegas won the cup, and then I got this absolutely like insane information about Logan Thompson, about he could be possibly like traded out, and then Kevin Weeks kind of indirectly like fanned the flames, like of Logan Thompson being traded, and he wasn't traded that offseason, but he was traded the next offseason. If you remember, he was supposed to do a signing event at the draft because it was held in Vegas, but I think they canceled that because
Yeah.
he got traded to Washington. Like a lot of like insiders are kind of just like, I don't know, they're just trying to like jump on their first piece of information that they see, whether it's correct or not. And it's kind of like muddying their reputation because if you remember what happened with Parayko, he was really close to getting traded to Buffalo,
Oh yeah.
but this was reported way before he had the chance to waive his no movement clause, and now I think Darren Drager might be the most hated person in Buffalo, minus Jack Eichel or Tom Brady right now.
He completely blew that deal for them. I mean, there was over the
Could you imagine if
summers.
that wasn't leaked? Could you imagine if that wasn't leaked though?
Oh my god, that would have. I
I
mean,
think
there's a
I
chance he
think he
probably still would have
probably,
declined it.
yeah, but oh, if it wasn't made public, he might have accepted it. Who knows? Who knows?
There was also that thing with Tomas Hurdle over the summer where he was
Yeah,
100%
yeah,
going to
yeah.
Vegas.
Yeah. Um,
Okay.
I think there was a rumor. It's like I was remember because it was during. I'm an Oklahoma City Thunder fan, and I was watching the parade, and then I saw like I'm in a Discord server with, and then someone said hurdle to Carolina. I was like, there's no way. Like there's no way that's a real trade. And apparently someone, I think it was Cam Robinson was pushing. Is like, there's no way this. I haven't seen Elliott report on this. I haven't seen Pierre LeBrun. I haven't seen any like of the higher upper echelon insider tiers report on this. So like I had waited a little bit. Turns out
Yeah.
it wasn't really a real rumor, and it was just jarring. But yeah,
It was all for nothing. It was probably David Pagnotta something that
I mean,
first and you just know it's wrong.
to be fair to Pagnotta, Pagnotta, he's not really that bad. I mean, he gets a lot of stuff wrong, but he's not like Frank, where I think like Frank I think has a very big ego. That's why he's like plastered all over like the underdog like intermission reports, because I have a couple buddies that were Dallas Stars fans. He's on the intermission reports a lot. Whenever I had the chance to catch a Stars stream, he's on the intermission reports, and it's like, that's how big of an ego do you need to have that? That is that is such a
He
big
thinks he's Elliot.
ego. Yeah, he's not. He's just a
He thinks he's the big
Timu,
Freege. He's not.
the big Frege.
He thinks he's the big Freege, but he's not. Nobody 15 breaking news trades that he got out first. I mean, dominating performance.
It's just incredible. Anyway, speaking of trades, how about we get into today's episode, Ian? How about that? Welcome back to the Coast and Coast podcast. This is our second episode ever. If you're listening to us, we thank you for taking your time every day to listen to us. This is Olin Lau with your other host, Ian Kennedy. Ian, how are you doing on this fine Monday afternoon, evening? Was this on the East Coast?
It's evening time on the East Coast. It's a beautiful spring day out. I feel pretty
It's
good. Just
already
got back
spring.
from work.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's beautiful here down in Dixieland, man. You wouldn't believe it. How are you doing today,
The
homie?
unfortunate thing, good, good. The unfortunate thing about me is that I just saw something earlier this morning that apparently in a couple weeks it's already going to be 100 degrees in Las Vegas, Nevada, which is brutal this early into the year. And I have no one else to blame but those damn AI data centers. I feel like they're they're the big cause to all this, you know. But you know, other than that, it's fine. I got a couple plans for this month. I'm going down to a convention. I posted about it one time. I don't know if you saw, but I'm going to Anime Las Vegas later this month, March 21st to
Oh,
March
nice.
22nd. I'll be there all day. If you're there, just come say hi to me. I'll be in costume, so you might not recognize me at first, but
Wait, first,
big hockey weekend. Oh,
who are you going as?
I don't know, like I don't know. I don't want to nerd out too much on the pod, but higher profile is like that's the main character from that game. I'm not gonna spoil anything because a big date, because like the game it follows like a calendar system, and very recently, early in March, like a big event happened on a certain day in early March, and it's really like kind of like the climax of the game. So I'm not gonna. If you want to play it for yourself, it's
Mm,
probably on sale on Xbox if you have that. On Steam, it's still like $60, so I would wait for it to get on sale. But if you want a good it's a long game. Let's say it took me like 70 hours for my first playthrough to complete my first playthrough. So
wow.
it's a long game. It's a long game, but I definitely say it's worth it. But yeah, and
Proud
then
sponsor of the Coast to Coast podcast, by the way.
yeah, shout out Atlas over in Japan, but no, they did not sponsor it. They did not sponsor. This is free
Hit
publicity
us
I'm
up.
giving them, so they better cut me a check. You know, say, but hopefully we get some sponsors, some real sponsors. Actually, I might have a little bit of sponsorship. You know, I don't know. Boy, were there some big things happening in hockey this weekend. I just want to point your attention to a certain Atlantic Division clash that happened yesterday. Let's see if I can pull up the box score because
One of the greatest games I've ever watched.
in a 8-7 thriller, the Buffalo Sabres took down the Tampa Bay Lightning in a game that saw a combined, hold on, let's see, four goals for the Lightning, 3 goals in the Sabres in second period, so 7 goals, and then 3 goals for Lightning and 4 goals, 14 goals in the last 2 periods. 14 goals. Have you ever seen something like that before?
No, and usually when it is a game like that, it might be kind of a crapshoot. Like I remember a couple years back, it was like a Blackhawks and Senators game that ended up going
Oh,
like
I know
that.
what you're
I've
talking
never
about. Oh,
seen two heavyweights going at it like that, and they had what, four fights throughout the game. Brendan Hagel took a lot of shots at Rasmus Dahlin. The Sabres are not playing
he only
around
got
though.
a. Did you see he only got a 500 or not $5,000 fine for that? He
Oh my
only got a
god, yeah.
$5,000 fine for that.
The
That
NHL
was
just loves their little Florida teams.
oh man. I think I said this yesterday. The a Lightning Sabres series would like probably solve a lot of the world's problems. I think it would have ended so many wars, fed hungry kids everywhere. It would have been something that's generational. Like we need that series in the second round.
We
And
need to see
I
that.
don't think yeah, yesterday in hockey was just good in general. Lots of close games until you got to the late window. But like the early games, you had a shootout between the Colorado Avalanche and Minnesota Wild. You had an absolute classic between the Bruins and the Penguins as well. And then you had that insane Sabres Lightning game. And then to top it all off, you have the Dallas Stars winning in overtime over Chicago, and then the rest of the slate was just crap. But we don't talk about that later slate. We talk about the important games, the 1 goal games. But
I think there is one
on top
game
of that,
we should talk about here. How about the Golden Knights and Oilers also going
we
head to
will
head
get
for
to
the
them
division?
later. I'm going to save those guys for later because I have some choice words for those guys. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, no,
Oh, I can't wait.
tons of great hockey, tons of great hockey yesterday, and it was all preceded by the NHL's trade deadline. And oh boy, what a Debbie Downer of a trade deadline that it usually was. And compared to recent years, at least, not a lot of deals going on until like the very, not to the very end of the deadline, and then that's when some of like the fireworks are. But even that couldn't say from how much of a bore this year's deadline was compared to the others. What were your thoughts on it, Ian?
Overall, I mean, yeah, I agree. Like you said, it was a little disappointing, especially because the insiders did their thing again. And there were a lot of names out there, like you look at Ryan O'Reilly and Vinny Trocheck, who just did not get moved at all. But within that, I felt like there were a lot of interesting deals going on. The main one to me that I want to talk about first, just because it caught me by such surprise, John Carlson is an Anaheim
Oh
Duck.
man,
Capitals
man,
get a
John
conditional first
Carlson,
round pick and a third round pick in 2027.
man,
Johnny C.
it's that's so crazy because if you remember, like he was on that. I think he was one of the last three players. Well, before he got traded, he was on the last three players before he got traded to that on that 2018 Capital seed, that team that beat my Vegas Golden Knights in the Stanley Cup final, which as like a Knights fan, gonna sidetrack a bit. As a Knights fan, it sucked to like to watch that because I felt like Vegas was pretty much the team of destiny that it was like not really like they were the team of destiny. Like it was two teams of destinies going up against each other, and unfortunately one had to lose. I just wish it was a bit more of a competitive series, but yeah, but
Fantastic
it's just so
games, though.
crazy. Yeah, no, that game one of that series will forever be like a core memory for me. But just to get back to things, yeah, John Carlson to Anaheim, one that broke at like I think 1 a.m. Eastern, around midnight Eastern. Just an insane thing to happen, and like I think just like the extra bits already, like he was traded in his sleep, and they didn't tell him about it till like 6 a.m. I think that was just also wild.
Because this is a guy that's
But
been around for probably a decade plus, and you can't even
yeah,
make
it's
sure
like
he's awake to find out he gets traded.
he's a cup winner. He scored a golden goal at the World Juniors, I believe, too, to beat Canada in overtime, and just he's like a franchise defenseman. I mean, we all know who
Yeah,
the Capitals franchise guy is, but in terms of like if you had like another like franchise guy currently on the Capitals, it probably was John Carlson, and now he's no longer on the team. I guess that means that Jacob Chikrin's now the top guy, and he's been performing insane this year. But it's just so crazy to see a household name like that get traded for to be fair, it's a solid haul. Like you get a first round pick back and a third, but
yeah,
even then,
it's a
it's
fair
like
trade.
it just catches you off guard. Like,
I'm very
yeah,
excited to see what Joel Quenville will be able to get out of John Carlson, though. I think
yeah,
Anaheim. I mean, obviously they're first in the Pacific right now. They're going to be a real team to watch in the playoffs. I feel like not enough people are
yeah.
talking about the potential for like a Ducks Western Conference Final appearance.
And that's
I might
that's
be
one
jumping
thing
the
I do
gun.
want to. Hey, we'll see what happens in April and May, but that's just one of the bigger shocking deals. How about this? Nazem Kadri going back to Colorado. How about that? That was a one that broke, I think, an hour after the deadline. Because remember, I was at work after the
Yeah,
deadline. I checked Twitter. It's like Ellie Freeman said, Kadri back to Colorado. I'm like, okay, wait a minute. I thought this deal wasn't going to happen. Now it is happening. What was going on with that?
yeah. Wasn't it the owner blocked the deal at first because they really wanted to keep Kadri, that ownership group over there in Calgary.
Yeah, but that's crazy. But some other big deals that happened. Justin Falk to Detroit. That's going to help out, round out Detroit's back end for now. They
I kind
just
of
lost
love
their
that
captain
move.
Dylan Larkin. Yeah, that's a great move. That's a great move.
And the Blues
They
don't
just
get
lost
a bad
Larkin.
return. I
Yeah, no,
mean,
it's a good
Blues
return.
got a first round pick in 2026, third round pick, a Justin Hall, and a prospect.
Yeah,
Pretty
no,
good
it's
trade for both sides.
yeah, no. You can't be mad about that if you're a Red Wings or a Blues fan. If you somehow were living under a rock and you were only listening to the greatest hockey podcast that's ever put out 2 episodes, uh, Lo- Logan Stanley and Braden Luke Shen, not Braden Shen, they get sent to Buffalo for Isaac Rosen. defenseman Jacob Bryson, a 2027 second round pick, and a 2026 fourth round pick. That should shore up Buffalo's depth. Couple good defensemen there. Who knows where Buffalo might be
No,
at next year? But it's not a bad deal. Not a bad deal.
those are two guys too that, I mean, in the Atlantic Division, you're gonna have fights in the playoffs. You're gonna have tough battles. Those are two big guys that can handle that. They're not the greatest on the ice, but that's okay. Third pair of minutes, put them out there, block some shots.
Yeah, and Buffalo made a bunch of other trades too. They got Sam Carrick. They got the Tanner Pearson. They're just beefing up their depth, and that's that's something. If you're a Sabres fan, I think you kind of have to be happy about. You didn't buy too crazy. I mean, you almost did. Could you imagine like saying this a couple years ago that Buffalo would win the division, let alone make the playoffs?
Even a couple months ago, before Kevin Adams got fired, it looked like they were just heading toward another year of being at the bottom of the standings. This
Yeah,
turnaround has been unreal, and they're legitimately one of the most fun teams to watch right now. Like, if you get the chance, please turn on a Sabres game. To anybody listening, just go watch them. Shout out
yeah.
Buffalo.
No, check out the Sabres. I mean, hopefully, like this is probably the one of the most wide open up years for anyone. Like I could honestly see any one of these teams, well, except any team for the Pacific Division, but we'll get to that later. We'll get to that later. But yeah, no, absolutely wide open year for the Cup, and I'm so excited to watch the playoffs as a hockey fan, as a sports fan. It's the best playoffs in all of sports. I mean, baseball's pretty good, NFL's really good, NBA, there's issues there, but hockey is the best playoffs all around, and I don't think it's really hard to argue with that.
The first round of the playoffs, those 2 weeks are like the best time of the year.
Second round, you check out into the Cup final if your team's eliminated, or you hate watch,
um,
which I also like to do.
oh yeah, no. A hate watch is necessary. I always
Hate,
hate watch the Florida Panthers and New York Rangers whenever they would beat us.
unfortunately, that's not going to happen for you this year because they won't make the playoffs. We still got some more trades to talk about, Ian. What you got for me?
How about defenseman Mackenzie Weegar going to the Utah Mammoth in exchange for Olin Mata, Jonathan Kasna, and 3 second-round picks? Now,
Three
granted,
second
they're
round
all
picks is crazy.
granted they're all in 2026. I don't know how Utah got that many second-round picks, but this one kind of went under the radar for some people. I love this move. I
I
love
love
this
it
move.
too.
I think Mackenzie Weegar still has enough left in the tank to get them going. You're basically a new team. You're in a new city. Get them to the playoffs. I don't know how I feel about Salt Lake City. I don't expect them to be too lit, but I'm excited for the Mammoth. I'm excited for that franchise that they're
Yeah.
finally back on their way up a little bit. What do you think?
Yeah. Like pretty much same thing you said. Like I kind of know a lot of Arizona fans who kind of flip flop to Vegas after their team left them. So I kind of have a little bit of disdain towards the Mammoth, but in terms of the overall like team, I think that's pretty good for him. You get a guy like Uyghur. Yeah, I would say he's an immediate upgrade over a guy like not in terms of like number one potential because I think Mackenzie Weegar probably would be their best overall defenseman with the exception of Sergachev, but that's still a really good like a really good second defenseman to have on your team. And the price pick was a little bit steep, but you're it's kind of like a win-win. Mammoth get a great defenseman, and then the Flames get some prospects for the future, or not some prospects, a prospect, a guy that can play right now in Oli Mata, and but 3 second round picks. That's you never really see that. You never really see that.
It's a
Three
very
second round
franchise
picks is
mode
crazy.
esque move.
Yeah, no, this is like you're dumping
That's
everything without giving up your first round pick because you want to do something with that first round pick. But yeah, no, good deal. I like it. I like it.
How about winger Connor Garland going from the Canucks to the Blue Jackets in exchange for a second in 2028 and a third in 2026? The most surprising part of this deal is the fact it wasn't the Islanders that got it done, because that was the big rumor. It was almost a done deal. And then boom, Connor Garland wakes up as a Columbus Blue Jacket. Welcome to Ohio. So yeah, Connor Garland is a Columbus Blue Jacket. Came out of nowhere. He has an extension that he signed with Vancouver. I believe it was a 5-year deal, and he never played a game for them while on the
On that
contract.
extension. Wow. Yeah,
Yeah.
like that's if it gets Columbus to the playoffs, that's going to help them a lot. But I mean, Columbus is still like trying to like recover from horrible tragedy a couple summers ago. But it's like I think this is a step in the right direction, and I think putting a second round pick in 2 years is not the biggest price in the world. I think you do that 7 days a week, 2 times on Sunday. Honestly, if you're Columbus or Vancouver, it's a good deal
Oh
for
yeah.
everyone. I'm gonna be completely honest. Yeah,
Donnie Waddell, he still knows how to get his players. And Columbus
shout
right
out.
now, they're only 2 points out of the last wild card spot. 74 points. The Bruins are at 76. Canadians are at 78. Ottawa bought, they're at 71 points. Like this is going to be a tight race down the stretch.
Yeah, I'm excited. Like even the build up towards the playoffs is awesome. But you got one more big deal. How about Braden Shen to the Islanders? How about that? Islanders beefing up their center depth for the playoff run.
The Blues getting a first round, third round, and Jonathan Drouin in return. I don't know how I feel about this move for the Islanders. I think they might be buying a little too early. I understand they're going to go to the playoffs. I understand they're going to try to beat Pittsburgh. I don't know how getting another guy with like how much does Braden Shen make? Like almost $6 million.
Yeah, but I think that's a veteran guy that will help them, especially pretty early on in the playoffs when those games are a lot physical. You're just trying to like test the waters, feel how your opponent feels, feel how your competition's going to be. Like those first two games of the playoffs, you want a guy like Braden Shen out there just to kind of like help you test the waters. But other than that, I don't really have a problem with this deal. I think the price is kind of high, but
Yeah.
I mean, to get that experience for the playoffs, sometimes you got to do what you got to do. And shout out to the Islanders for going all in on this one move.
Brought in Andre Palat earlier this season too. That's another guy that's going to
Yeah, they
help big
did.
time in the playoffs.
Yeah, no, the Islanders are looking really good despite how much they gave up. Other deals from the deadline include Bobby McMahon to Seattle, which Pagnotta had really early before anyone else did. And then I was driving to work and I saw he went to Seattle. I was like, oh, I thought, okay, not bad. And then Nick Waugh to Colorado. That one hits close. Not only is that Kane's legend, but that's also Golden Knights legend. I saw him score the last goal of that Game 5 2023 series to win the Stanley Cup, and now he's off to a conference rival. At least he's wearing number 10 again. That's all I can say. Um, Other deals? How about some from the Golden Knights? Some minor pieces, Cole Smith and Nick Dowd. Some big
Oh,
pieces going back to the Capitals and Predators respectively. High draft picks, which for fourth liners made me scratch my head, and we'll get to those later. But what did the Hurricanes do at the deadline, Ian? I'm curious about that.
Hurricanes traded for forward Nick Delorier for a conditional seventh round pick. You're giving up pretty much nothing, and you get one of the best fighters in the league, which I do think is a need. We need somebody that other teams will be scared of to drop the gloves with. So I am
Mm-hmm.
appreciative of that fact. I do feel like with the amount of cap space they had, they could have gone out and done something else. Yes, prices were high. Like I get Nick Waugh was a first. Personally, I would have paid a second and a fourth for Bobby McMahon. But the Canes are going to stay solid and they're going to continue on with their group, which I think is not a bad bet when you look at it because they have so much depth already. They are building such distinct chemistry that it's almost hard to justify separating them. Especially when you look at how Hall, Stankoven, and Blake have been playing together. Even with no major additions, I still think this is a team that can win the Stanley Cup. I would have liked some more reinforcements, like maybe a seventh defenseman to go in place of Mike Riley. But overall, can't really complain with just Nick Delorier. Bit of a missed opportunity, but this is what the Canes do. They're not going to make any major moves without highly considering it. You know, they were going after Vinny Trocheck. They had interest in Ryan O'Reilly. They had interest in Nazem Kadri, but all of those players had trade protections. It just wasn't. Nick Delorier probably won't play in every game. He might play more down the stretch, but I'm still happy with how this team looks and where we're going.
Going into the trade deadline, I thought that there was going to be more specifically deadline day, not like the overall deadline. I thought there was going to be more moves to, kind of beef up and solidify because on paper, the Golden Knights team should not be at 72 points, second in the division, only behind Anaheim and two ahead on the Edmonton Oilers, who only got ahead last night after beating the Golden Knights 4-2. But I'm not going to talk about the game because I think that's keeping it light. I think right now, if I had the choice, I would probably say the Golden Knights should miss the playoffs. It's a good team. It's not a great team. It's not an awful team, but it's just a solid team that doesn't. It's not playing the way they should. Like this team, like the first year under Cassidy, was a defensively sound team. Like you could really not generate any chances. That's really not the case anymore since Alec Martinez retired in 2024. And now this team is a bunch of skill. You have guys like Marner, Noah Hannafin, you have Rasmus Anderson brought into this season. And you kind of had to retool to death because you had to lose guys like Nicholas Hague, Zach Whitecloud, Alec Martinez to retirement, and now that cup winning core that you had all those years ago is just gone from that bottom six. The forwards are still going to be the forwards. I mean, you're still structurally sound as a forward group, but then once like some of the decisions Bruce Cassidy is making, you're playing your best winger on the roster in the center position and you're putting your second
I was
best
going to ask you
center
about that.
on the third line with no additional offensive threat. Like, and that's not even going the fact that yesterday he scratched Riley Smith, who has had a overall better offensive season than Brandon Saad. For Brandon Saad, who has rem- remarkably fallen off a cliff recently, and it's just I'm starting to like question Bruce Cassidy, and I think I saw someone say this. He might be riding off of goodwill from winning the cup, which is one thing. You win the cup,
Mm.
everything gets glossed over. The Golden Knights, this is a team that is built to play under guys who could you could maximize the skill to this potential. Bruce Cassidy is a defensive first head coach and he's struggling to take a lineup full of skill and kind of discipline them. I mean, shout out to Braden
Mm.
Bowman. He's having a fantastic season. Kind of like an underdog story coming up from the AHL. He's been described as like a mini Mark Stone, and to his credit, kind of has been. But you I just don't get playing your best winger away from your best center and then having your second best center who is known for being a bit of an offensive spark plug because Tom Oswald has scored some big goals for the Knights since he's been on the team. However, I think if you're going to use him as like a third line kind of two-way center, I think that you're underutilizing his abilities. I think it's some weird coaching decisions, and I think it's time to start asking questions about Cassidy's long-term future. I still think he's going to be the head coach next year. I'd be very shocked if Vegas were to fire him. Playing Mitch Marner at center still, like it was a fun gimmick for a couple games.
I guess I can understand the thinking behind having like a two-way player move to center, but he's not a center. Like how is he supposed to
He's not
produce
good
from a
in the
position of
dot.
the ice he's never played? Yeah, he's at what, like
And
42% face off?
which is not bad, but also you would arguably want someone who wins faceoffs, and I believe Tomas Hertl's a guy. I mean, I don't believe he is a guy who does better in the faceoff circle. So it's just kind of like it's weird. Like if Bruce Cassidy, if I sat down with Bruce Cassidy and I told him to set up a lineup, I would go. You put you put Jack Eichel on the first line, of course, with Marner and Barbashev. I would have Brett Howden because I'd arguably think he's our third best center because William, who's healthy right now. William Karlsson is hurt. I put Howden on the second line, and I put him with Dorofeev and Hurdle. I put Hurdle on the wing before I would put Marner at center because I think Tomas Hurdle's also had
I feel like
a decent production as a winger too. But I feel like you could kind of like swap those two, and then third line. This is obviously when healthy, but I put Carlson, Smith, Stone, perfect shutdown line. You can get some offense out of that too. And then fourth line, you do Dowd, Sissons, Smith, in any of that order. You could swap one for Colasar. It doesn't really matter. That fourth line is going to do their job no matter what. They've always done their job no matter what in Vegas. Don't really see them making it past the second round, and that's my best case scenario for the Golden Knights, just making it past the second round. Because we'll
right.
talk about the playoff picture later, but right now they're they have home ice advantage versus Edmonton, and I think with home ice advantage they beat Edmonton in like a 7 game series. But outside of that, I don't see them getting past Anaheim. I still think Vegas is more structurally sound than Edmonton. I trust
Right.
Vegas goalies more than Edmonton, just a slight bit though. And I feel like if it came down to it, I know Connor McDavid is a fantastic player. The Oilers are absolutely top loaded. I do still kind of feel like Vegas just kind of has the overall edge because still believe Vegas has better defensemen or like a better defensive system, not necessarily defensemen.
One of the major reasons we have lost in the playoffs is goaltending. And it's not always that our goaltending is bad, it's just that our goaltending gets outdueled. Picking up Brandon Bussey on waivers in October. Uh,
What a
Currently
pickup.
has a record of 25, 4, and 1. But I'm starting to get a little bit worried because despite the fact he's only lost one of his last six, let me read out his save percentages starting on January 29th against Utah. 840, 846, 889, shutout against the Rangers, 857, 818, and then finally an 800 save percentage against Calgary, where he was the main cause of two goals because he came out of the net. All I
I
can
think
foresee is that he is going to do that in the playoffs, and it is going to cost us a goal.
I think it's fine because like Brandon Bussey hasn't never really seen like extensive eyes on him outside of playing in Boston's minor system. However,
Right.
I do think it's like valid to have those concerns about him, but I just think he's kind of like taking the reins as Carolina's number one guy. I know Frederick Anderson hasn't been all that this season. I know Kochekov has kind of been a disappointment as well. I
Kochetkov's
think you
been hurt
still,
all season.
yeah, he hurt too. Uh, I still think if I was Brindamore, I would probably start Anderson in the playoffs. I know he's kind of been very consistent this season. However, I think you want a guy who's been there before, and that's not to knock on Brandon here, but I think you just kind of want that experience in net there for the playoffs.
Anderson loves to do this thing where he just gets super hot at the end of the year and just drags him into it. I don't know if there's enough time or enough runway for him to go that route. Like I do think at the end of the day, game one against Montreal or Boston or whoever, it's going to be Brandon Bussey standing on the starters crease. I think he's going to have a 2021 Nedeljkovic type of playoffs where he starts out like, a little shaky but winning, and then he's gonna have a really bad implosion at some point.
And he already signed him to an extension, so it's not like
Right.
you're trading him out immediately. But I would definitely think that I think teams are starting to figure out Brandon Bussey. Not saying he's not going to be good, but it's just how is he's going to respond to those teams that are just going to figure out like they're starting to. We saw this with Jordan Bennington. Jordan Bennington was an electric goalie when he first started playing in it, like his first few games, and then once like more teams started figuring him out, he kind of became mediocre, but could absolutely rob a game if he wanted to.
Right. And that's kind of what Bussy has been. I mean, his save percentage has never been high throughout the entire season, but he wins because he all he does is he sits back in his net and he fights for saves, and it's incredible to watch. I think the team themselves are more confident playing in front of him. I think he's really built for our type of defensive system, which usually does insulate goaltenders anyway. But long term, because I mean we have him for 3 more years after this, it still remains to be seen. You never really know what goalies, and as impressive as he's been through the first 30 games of his career, you can't judge all that much off of just 30 games. The real test starts in April.
We're going to take a deeper dive at the overall playoff bracket. We're going to talk our early predictions, who's going to win these matchups, and who's going to win the Stanley Cup post deadline. We'll be right back after this. Welcome back to the Coast and Coast podcast with your host, Olin and Ian. The Stanley Cup playoffs are right around the corner, Ian. How do you feel?
Every day after work for the next 2 months and watch some hockey.
It's going to be so
And
awesome.
starting with the Eastern Conference, it would be Buffalo and Montreal,
Oh,
Tampa and
baby.
Detroit. And then in the Metro, you got Carolina versus Boston, and then Pittsburgh versus the New York Islanders.
That's
That
such
is,
that's a great first round. I want to
I've never
start with the one
seen a
that
more perfect layout.
I want to start with the matchup that no like the first two matches that no one are going to be talking about if these happen, and that's Detroit and Tampa because I feel like no one's really talking about Detroit because we've seen this story before. Detroit, great season, and then they just collapse in March. I don't feel like that's the case this year. I feel like we're going to see Detroit make the playoffs this year for the first time, and I know that's going to excite all the Detroit fans. They're going to get Little Caesars Arena packed. It's going to be a blast in that town for a while. But
That's
Tampa
actually going to
Bay,
be the first playoff game in that new building. Spent millions and
that's
millions and
right.
millions. This is going to be the first playoff game.
That's right too. That's also crazy, but like think about it. Um Tampa, kind of a resurgent year for them too. Three in the Metro one, not the Metro, the Atlantic once again. I'm pretty excited for that. I can kind of see that series going either ways, but I'll give the edge to I'll say Tampa in six. What about you?
Yeah, you know what? I think I'll go Lightning in 7. I think the Red Wings are going to be really hyped up. I don't see them losing in Detroit, but I do think Tampa will end up taking it at the end of the day.
I think that's pretty fair. I think that's pretty fair to say that. Now the second series, no one's gonna really be talking about. How about Pittsburgh and the Islanders? Two teams we thought would not be there at the beginning of the year are going head to head in the